We're back. It's the lift up with Gretchen, and I'm trying to get Courtney on because this is really, really important for us to be able to hear her story and what she's gone through, and again, because this is a really, really important story to tell.
There we go.
And there she is. Oh my goodness, what was going on?
I have no idea what was going on. It just kept telling me that you were giving me a request, and then I would hit it, and I'm like, oh wait, can you see me? Because I can't see that anybody can see me. So I'm glad that it worked out.
Well, thank goodness, because I was having a few Wi-Fi difficulties at my house today, and I was hoping it wasn't me, but I don't think it was, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to connect. But here
Right,
we
we're
are.
here.
So many people have been waiting to hear from you today, and I'm so glad that we could do this lift up with Gretchen Carlson and Courtney. And how do you pronounce your last name so that I say it correctly?
Kotzian.
That's what I thought. Kotzian. Okay. Now, it sounds like you and I have gone through similar things in our fight to demand equality in the workplace for women. I want you to give all the people who are watching right now your background on your story. I know it's the 1-year anniversary today, so this is really well timed. What was it? Where did it begin? What happened?
Well, actually, it was a 1-year anniversary of me first starting to speak out about it. The 2-year anniversary is going to be the day before Thanksgiving next month. So it happened a while ago. So I was working at TD Ameritrade, which is now Charles Schwab. I was working in the self-directed plan services department, and I was a relationship manager. I had a guy that was a manager. He was in the same department, but he was on an adjacent team, and he was a manager, and he was, just generally office creepy, like squeeze on the shoulder, talk to you a little too close, kind of like corner you and chat you up all the time. And at first it was, generally creepy. And then the day before Thanksgiving, 2018, or sorry, day before Thanksgiving, 2019. Yes, 2019. Sorry, just making sure I've got the dates right. 2019, he came up to me and he asked me why I wasn't wearing a hoodie on an ultra casual day, because it was the day before Thanksgiving. People, didn't really want to be at work. So, you could wear whatever you want. And I wasn't wearing a hoodie. And I told him that I didn't own a hoodie, and that's why I wasn't wearing a hoodie. And that wasn't good enough. So it kind of kept, conversation went on for about 20, 30 minutes. My cubicle mate and I were both engaged. She was also a woman and also not wearing a hoodie. And he just kept asking questions like, well, why don't you borrow one? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? You need to be wearing this thing I want you to wear. And he brought up my fiance at the time, who, we lived together, and he also worked at TD Ameritrade at the time, if I could borrow one from him on Friday, which would be the next ultra casual day. And eventually I got sick of it and just told him, I don't own a hoodie. I'm not borrowing a hoodie. I'm not buying a hoodie, and you can't make me wear one. And at that point, he got a lot more aggressive. It went from kind of, being a little bit more playful in his demeanor to being very serious. And he told me that he could, in fact, make me wear a hoodie. And I made fun of him. I kind of laughed. I was like, what are you going to do? Send a memo to the CEO and have a hoodie mandate for me to, have to wear one on Friday for you? Right. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But what I can do is I can get your address, your home address out of, there's a, system that we used at that particular employment place that has all of the employees' addresses, and the managers had access to that. So he could actually get my address, drive to my house on Friday, break into my home, tie me up, and force me into the clothing of his choice. At that point, I told him that was serial killer level creepy, and he acted shocked, like, me creepy? How could that possibly be? And told me that I needed to, if I was going to make an accusation like that I needed to be specific about what was creepy. And I was like, anytime you tell a woman that you're going to tie them up, that's
no kidding,
crossing a line. And so then he retold the entire thing of getting my address, coming to my house, breaking in. He added a few details of, he was going to zip tie me then to my dining room chair and force me into the clothing of his choice. At that point, I told him he needed to just go away. I had actually asked him to leave me alone a couple of times previous to that, but I was very adamant at that point. And he did walk away. I didn't report it immediately. I told, a couple of women that worked in the area, like the, general cubicle areas that we were in, open office seating area, about it. There was another woman who had complained about sexual harassment from this particular guy. and she reported it to her manager. So then it went up to chain of command, and then I, had to talk about it with my managers and et cetera. And there was an investigation. Absolutely nothing was done. HR spoke to, lots of different people. I explained to them why I hadn't reported, and I had quite a few reasons not to. I've been warned not to. I've been warned not to.
By whom?
I was warned by my assistant team manager and my team manager about actually the other woman who had been sexually harassed by him previously, that she was unliked by our director because of it.
Right.
So I was warned not to say anything, but after it was out there, I was like, I'm going for it. Like I can't really reel that back.
But that's the typical thing that happens, Courtney, is that hypothetically anywhere women are shamed into silence, right? Because now you're a troublemaker if you decide to come forward. But there's usually always a pattern. It's not just, you're not the only one that this has ever happened to. And because of all the secrecy that goes on inside the workplace, many people they're not aware of other people that are going through this, right? So they feel like they're all alone. All right. So what happens next, according to you?
So according to me, what happens next is, it was reported, and then I started noticing behavioral changes towards me and my job, projects that I was a big part of, projects that I was nominated for awards for weeks before I was harassed. I all of a sudden did it all wrong. They started getting taken off my plates. I started getting more and more undesirable work, started being left out of meetings, talked about, less than favorably with things, over criticized. And then I kind of got a clue that they may have wrapped up the investigation without telling me, of course. I was not kept in the loop with any of these things. When the man involved started stalking me around the office, started following me around, followed me up to my car once. It was really uncomfortable. And then started stalking me online after hours, would look at my LinkedIn profile repeatedly. And, you get alert, like, looked at your profile. And I was taking screenshots of this. I'm actually the daughter of an HR executive. So, like, he passed away several years ago, but my dad did that for a living. I knew what he did. I used to shadow with him on the weekends. So I knew immediately the document, write every single thing down, make sure there's witnesses to things, talk about it.
Smart. Yeah.
And
that's so smart, because people don't know to do that. I wrote about it in my book, Be Fierce, after my story at Fox News. You were so smart to tell people documentation and evidence means everything. But what happened with the investigation? Did they ever interview you?
They did interview me, and I told them everything, and they were very, empathetic, at the moment. And then nothing, just crickets, just silence. And so my sister's a local police officer, and I told her about it, and she told me, she was like, that's serial killer, type talk, and you should probably, and I'm not saying that he is, I'm just saying that, that's how it feels, to the person on the other side of being threatened with zip ties and stuff. She told me to get a record from the company of this event happening. So I asked HR if they could write me up something, about the incident. And they basically told me, like, well, we finished our review, and then it will never happen again. You're great. I'm like, okay. But they did write up something that was very, very non-descriptive, basically like, we take harassment very seriously. And inappropriate comments were made on this date. And then that was really it. And then where the retaliation really started was a couple of months later, right before we all went home for quarantine, COVID, work from home. My director, I'll never forget this moment. I was just sitting there doing my job and looked up, and my director was there with like maintenance crews, and they were like moving things around. They're moving everybody's cubicle around. And so I sat in like a little box here, and Sarah, one of the other victims, sat in a box here, and I believe she's probably on here. I know she said she was going to watch earlier.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. She was in a cubicle here, and Samuel's manager was actually in a cubicle here, and they moved her away and moved him to sit right next to us. In between the two women he sexually harassed. And then at that point, he had the maintenance team come back and move his desk where he was kind of faced away from us to be facing us directly, to have the whole thing dismantled so he could be staring at us directly. And it was so wild that this was even happening. It was totally surreal, because there were people even walking past going like, why are you doing that? Because in this, it was a huge room that we were all in and tons of people working. Not a single person's desk was facing in that direction because there was big windows behind us. You can't even see a computer screen because of the glare. And people are asking like, why are you doing this? Like, so I can watch people better. And it was just like, there was a lot of very uncomfortable things that came out of this experience.
And just not to interrupt you, but you're watching The Lift Up with Courtney Kotzian. We're talking about what she says her experience was at TD Ameritrade, which is now owned by Charles Schwab. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, Courtney, that the retaliation is the biggest undersold part of the harassment story, mm-hmm. because people just want to read the titillating headlines of the sexy crap that somebody said to you, right? But it's the retaliation that actually ends up killing you. Because you lose your career and your profession, and it's so, you can almost see it coming. It's like, why in 2021 do we still live in an environment where we want to crucify women for doing nothing except for enduring crap?
Existing. Just having the audacity to exist within a space with a man who can't control himself. Like, that's the part that, like the retaliation part was really difficult. And, you know, even when you talk about it with family and friends, if they haven't gone through it, they really have no idea what you're going through. And you'll get comments like, you know, you can only control your reaction to like a bad event. And I'm like, yeah, I know I can only control my reaction, but if I were to react in as impulsive of a way that this man reacted, I'd just be immediately fired. Whereas he was able to do this and then continue to stalk and it was a lot. There was a lot of feelings there.
So did he have any? Was he reprimanded? Was there any repercussions?
Not that I ever saw. He did eventually leave the company, but like 7 months afterwards, and he was, you know, everybody said how much they were going to miss him and wished him well on his new endeavors at a new company. As far as I know, nothing happened to him in that regard. Nothing happened to anybody except for me. You know, I was under a microscope for 16 months after this. And I get a lot of questions because I started a TikTok page where I started posting about this on there. And I get a lot of questions of like, why did you stay? Why did you do this? The amount of questions that I get about, I'm like, oh, there's a couple of reasons here. Like, one, I'm a single mom of two teenage boys. This was the highest paid job I have ever had as an adult. You know, working in the financial services industry is a you know, it's a well-paid job. In addition to that, I was there for 4 years, and in that 4-year period of time, I gained 6 professional licenses. And I live in Omaha, Nebraska. There's not a lot of financial firms here that will accept these things, and that's like an enormous amount of school or education that you have, and I did not want to give that up because of this.
Of course, you shouldn't have to. Yeah, this is the classic line that people say. Well, and even people in political office have said that, why don't you just move on, you know, go on to another job? Why should the woman have to do that for doing absolutely nothing wrong?
For just existing and doing a good, and I was, before this happened, I was very well respected. I had a lot of friends. My career was going in that direction, and it went down, like just crashed. And
so what happened? What happened to you?
I tried to transfer out of the department. I was on what I've been told by managers from the company is referred to as the do not hire list. So, you know, you get put on a list of, you know, don't hire this person if they're trying to do like an internal transfer. So I wasn't hireable within the company. I'd hired a lawyer at a point to try to negotiate a severance, you know, like just get me out of here. And they basically said that I was a valued and wonderful, you know, member of the team. But if I really wanted to leave, they would give me the same severance that they were giving people when they laid them off, which really was a very small amount. And I would have to sign NDA. And that was an absolute no for me because I worked at this company for 4 years of my life. During that time, I met a man that I almost married, but our relationship fell apart because of all of this. Like, fell apart. I lost a lot in this experience, but I still experienced it. And I was there for 4 years, and there was no way that I was going to just act like it never happened for a couple $1,000s that I'd have to split 40% of with a lawyer. I was like, no, like I can't accept that. That's not going to make me whole in this at all. So then I decided to stay, and in order to mentally get myself through that, I I don't even know how to tell you like how fangirly I am about you. I around that time when I hired the lawyer, I actually had watched the movie Bombshell, and before that, like my mom is a huge like Fox News enthusiast, and I remember watching your show, and I'm not sure how much of a compliment or not that this is, but I swear you radicalized me as a feminist, and I know that like men around the world are like always afraid that might happen to people, but you did. Like, you're on this network where you got this one message that came through loud and clear, and you were the first woman I ever saw that pushed back. Like, somebody pushed you and you pushed back. You were like, no. And I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, I felt that. Like, I have felt that at work before. And there you were doing it. And it was like a role model, you know, like, boom, like women can fight back. And
right.
I watched, you know, this movie and, you know, like got really into like your story. And I was like, I'm going to fight back. I'm going to record everything that I can. I'm going to document and then document on top of documents. I went through it and I talked to people about it a lot. And this is the best advice I can give to anybody. And it's awful. And I also recommend therapy if you're going to go in this direction, because you need it. Anytime you tell somebody that you're going to fight against a large corporation, the first thing they're going to do is list all of the reasons why that's a bad idea for you. And right. They're not wrong. That's the part that's really painful about it, is they're not actually wrong. In part, they are looking out for you, but in the other part, it's like, you know, just get over it. There's lots of different facets to it, but if you listen to what they're saying, you're like, okay, so people are going to say this about me, and it's like, okay, document things to prove that this is not what's happening, you know? And so like, that's what gave me the fuel, because in my particular role, like, you had a very different role than what I was doing. Everybody's, you know, job is different. I knew how to, or I didn't know, but like I learned how to figure out what was important to document and what was not important to document, because I was listening to what everybody told me would be the repercussions of me pushing back. Right. And I backed them into a corner. You know, I'll freely admit that. Like, I did not like go quietly with any of this. Like, anytime something happened, I spoke up about it immediately. Like,
good.
If something was taken off my plate, I would say something. If something was happening, I would say something. That is
how we make change happen, Courtney.
It is.
We're talking to Courtney Katzian because she put up a fight in her job against TD Ameritrade, which is now Charles Schwab. I'm going to read their statement in just a moment, because they did reach out to me and wanted to make sure they got their statement. But this is what I'm fighting now. This has become my passion project since I jumped off the cliff at Fox News 5 years ago already. And helped to ignite a movement that I had no idea that I would help to do so. And it's for people like you and all the other people who are watching, that we're in this together. But my fight now is, we're going to stop this. We're going to stop the silencing of women and other disenfranchised groups in the workplace. And I'm so proud of you for not signing that NDA.
No.
Because that's what I'm fighting against, as well as forced arbitration clauses and employment contracts that put you into the secret chamber and nobody ever hears from you ever again. And that's what companies want to happen to you, to cover up your dirty laundry. So let me read their statement. Okay. Harassment is unacceptable at Schwab, and we take every allegation seriously. Courtney Katzian's statements relate to conduct that allegedly occurred prior to Schwab's acquisition of TD Ameritrade, and they were investigated at that time. This week, Schwab retained outside counsel to conduct an independent review of Courtney's allegations. And that comes from the Schwab corporate communications team. I'll just say to that, and then I want you to comment, that I certainly hope that the outside counsel that they've hired is not a typical counsel that companies sometimes hire that whitewash everything. Right. And surprise, surprise, the report comes back that you did everything wrong, and the guy in question or anyone else was perfectly fine, as well as the company. Response, please.
Oh, I've got a response for that. So what you just read when I said that I asked for something in writing, that was what I got. We take this so seriously. I heard that so many times, and I would be like, how? Show me how you've taken this seriously. What actions have you done? And then they would kind of accuse me of trying to get private information about other associates. I'm like, no, that's it was a big circle thing. So I actually very specifically, and I told them this as they were pushing me out the door. I waited 16 months. That is a long time. And through a pandemic. I'm also a cancer survivor. People notice like my tattoo on the side of my head. I got this after I lost all of my hair to cancer, and before my hair grew back, I decided to tattoo my head instead of get a ribbon because that's the type of person I am. And I hadn't shown it until we were in quarantine, and I was kind of losing my mind, and I'm like, nobody sees me. But oh gosh, so
we're proud of you.
I waited until Charles Schwab reached out to me. The HR from Charles Schwab got involved because that was something that everybody was telling me. They're like, you know, well, it's a new company, and they're just going to say that it happened in the old one and not this new one. All of the managers involved, with the exception of the man who harassed me, are still employed right now. So the man that I discussed that moved him to sit next to me is still there and has been promoted within Charles Schwab's leadership. And I waited until I got reached out to by Charles Schwab to really just kind of tell them off of like, this is absolutely unacceptable. You have to fix this. You know, it's kind of how I went out. But I ended up having a meeting with Charles Schwab's HR, and she reached out to me, and her and I had a discussion, and I had been recording one-on-one meetings between me and my manager. And that's actually how my TikTok page started. I didn't really gain traction until a couple of weeks ago, but I've been doing it for a couple of months, and I was starting to gain like a pretty big following there because I was posting videos of my manager bullying me. Like, this is what it's like, because I was a top performer, and I was being told that everything I did was an error. I mean, literally from clocking in too early, that was an error. Like, I had 4 weeks to do a project. I got it done on time. Other people in my team did not get it done on time, but I didn't start it until the third week. And that was brought up in a performance review 4 separate times, that I waited to the last week to do it. And like things that weren't even a problem were a problem. Anyway, backtracking there. So I waited until Charles Schwab reached out to me. I had a meeting with their HR, and I posted all of this on my TikTok page as well. And the woman told me, you know, like, we don't want to go backwards, but how do we make this right moving forward? And I was like, I burst out into tears because it was really the first time in a very long time anybody there had treated me like I was a human being and not a liability, or not, you know, a disruptor or whatever else they considered me as. And she asked me what I wanted, and I told her that I wanted off of my team and I wanted away from my leadership team, that I wanted a job within Charles Schwab, but like away from all of these people. Right. And she was like, you know, we'll see what we can do. And then I also kind of went back after our initial conversation and was like, you know, to be perfectly honest, what I really want is I would like to be put into a role, because at that point I was already dedicated to, you know, what you're dedicated to, which is stopping this. And I was like, I've been with this company for a while. I know how all of this works. I bet there's other women out there like me. I would like to be able to be in a role where I can support other people like this. You know, they had some like diversity and inclusion, you know, roles and stuff. I was like, I would be very interested in that kind of thing. And then she came back to me a week later and told me that I could take a job that was not under my direct supervisor, Kate, but still under the director who, you know, encouraged, you know, this behavior with the man who harassed me. That I would still be under him, that they could just move me slightly over to another team where I had a different manager, but the same director. And I was like, no, that's actually what I asked. I asked for that not to happen.
But see, here's the inherent problem with all of this. Why do you have to be the one that has to be moved? And why don't they just get rid of the people who are part of this whole process? Because of the thousands of women I've ever spoken to, all they want to do is keep their job. And as you said, this was a great job for you as a single mom, and you were earning great money, and you did nothing. No. So why should you be the one that, first of all, even has to make a lateral move inside the company? And second of all, why don't they get rid of the bad eggs? This is what I'm trying to stop. And by you speaking out, you're helping in this. So what happens after that? Are you still at Charles Schwab?
I'm not. So what happened after that is I was terminated. I did get to a point where I made a last stand, and I was like, I'm not going to accept being abused on a daily basis. I'm not going to accept this, and I'm not going to accept that. Like, you need to make this very reasonable accommodation for me. And they said no and terminated me instead. And that was in May of this year. And
so what are you going to do about it now?
I filed an EEOC complaint. The state of Nebraska is very difficult to find labor attorneys that will take anything that has anything to do with sexual harassment, because the state laws here are very much in favor of the companies and not the victims. And that's why I took to speaking out so loudly and boldly with this, is that I wanted to gain momentum with it. I also have been like writing this into a story. And I've been doing like tarot cards with it. It's kind of like I used to be an artist before I went into this field. I was a cake artist.
I saw you drawing a photo of me on Instagram.
I did. It's you're definitely one of my cards now. So this would be,
wow.
There you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. But so when you talk about changing laws, and this is what I'm also trying to change on Capitol Hill. My legislation was just introduced in the House and the Senate again. If people want to go and support that, it gets rid of arbitration clauses. Do you know if you had an arbitration clause in your contract?
I do, but so the forced arbitration through FINRA, which is the regulation body for the financial services industry, includes everything but sexual harassment.
So you won't be forced into the secret chamber?
No.
Okay. So
no,
that's exactly that. My law is going to eradicate that, so that no company can force anyone into the secret chamber where nobody ever finds out about you, and all this promulgates the behavior of protecting the predator. All right. So you're waiting on your right to sue letter now from the EEOC.
Correct. I actually just a couple of days ago because they were backed up. So I'd actually first made the appointment with the EEOC back in March, and they weren't able to get me in until October. I bypassed that and literally showed up in the NEOC, so the Nebraska Equal Opportunity Commission's office, and sat there and was like, I'm going to sit here until somebody talks to me. They're like, we'll call you. I'm like, no, I'm going to sit here until somebody talks to me. And so I did get that at least pushed through, which was great. I have been speaking with a lot of different lawyers on this. I went through the oh my gosh, I hope I'm going to get this right, the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. Yep. And they paired me with several different lawyers, and they've been great. Issue being that they didn't have any in Nebraska. So like, any law firms I've been talking to are like outside of the state. And they also, this is another thing, as anybody out there that's experiencing anything like this, lawyers particularly don't really like to hear you say, I absolutely refuse to sign an NDA.
I know, but I'm trying to change them too.
I know.
I have to tell you that my legal team that I had is on the right side of history, and they actually would like to go out of business for doing sexual harassment and assault cases, because they believe that getting rid of NDAs is part of the process, like I do. Because see, when you just let women keep working and you get rid of the bad person, now you don't need lawyers, settlements, NDAs, arbitration, none of that. Because the woman just gets to keep working. Imagine that. What a novel thought.
Just like be treated like a human being.
I understand what you're saying about some lawyers do love the NDAs, and why? Because that's how you get settlement, and they get 33 1/3% of that.
Right, they get a big portion.
So we have to try to educate lawyers as well. Now, tell me about what you found out today, because I know you said you were inspired by my story, and you went to see Bombshell, which ironically I could have nothing to do with the making of the movie, because I did have to sign a stringent NDA. So I can't even tell you if the movie was accurate, but I'm glad that it inspired you.
I'm going to assume it was.
What?
You didn't say anything, but I'm assuming it was. So
okay. So let me ask you this. You found out something really monumental, your own bombshell today.
My own bombshell.
What was
that I would like to drop. So yesterday I was working on my tarot card collection, and I've been doing this for a while, like the illustrations and stuff, and I keep changing my mind about things and redoing it. And there was one that is going to be, titled The Office Creep. And I tried to model it off of just, basic guy. And I really needed to emotionally connect with this to get, because that's how I create art. And so I went to look up a picture of this guy, and I go to Google his name, and he's basically wiped his online presence off. Understandably, I've been speaking out pretty loudly about this, except for there's one thing that wasn't erased, and it was from one of those like bail bondsman like websites that's and they're kind of predatory, where they'll like post information about people and you have to like pay them to get rid of it. But it had a charge from 2016 for this particular individual, and it was for third-degree sexual assault of a child.
What?
That happened in 2016. And that was 3 years before I was sexually harassed at work. And so at first I say the last 24 hours has been, I don't even know how to describe the emotional roller coaster I've been on with this, because this has been happening for me for like 2 years, like it's been a long time that I've been dealing with this, and I never happened upon this before. And so I contacted my sister as a police officer. We're not necessarily on speaking terms. We have very differing opinions on masks and COVID and all that. Anyway, I don't know, a lot of families are like that nowadays. But my sister is a police officer, so I have a big connection within the Omaha Police Department. And I contacted several of my friends and was like, okay, what is this? Like, could this possibly be true? And so they gave me instructions, told me to go down to the headquarters office and ask, for a copy of the report. And so I went there, and, I was given a case number, and I was, the information that was on the website that I found was confirmed that had happened, that the case is, it's sealed because it had to do with a minor. It was never closed. It is considered at the moment a cold case. I did wiggle out a couple of details that I probably shouldn't have, but was able to confirm that it was the same person. So the man who sexually harassed me and sexually harassed other women in the office, stalked me, was moved to sit right next to me, had previously been arrested for sexual assault on somebody under the age of 14, according to the state. And I didn't know about that. And within the financial services industry, all legal matters have to be declared. They're usually put on like your U4 or U5. This was just a arrest, so it's an alleged incident. But I feel like there's probably no way that the company didn't know about this. I mean, I've known of people at the company who have gotten who have been fired for bankruptcies, for DUIs, for really anything like that could be legal. Even just charges, arrests, those things are very serious within this industry. But it blows my absolute mind that this person was treated with more respect and dignity and concerns for his privacy than me, the person that he threatened to come to my house and break in. He was threatening to remove all privacy from my life, privacy, my own body autonomy. And he has been accused of this previously, to the point where a police report was made. And I think
this is very interesting for your case, what you found out today. And I'll just say that social media, as much as I don't love it for my kids, I will say that this has been what has kept these movements alive. It helped to create the Me Too movement because people could come forward either with their name and face or anonymously, and that's how we came to find out, holy crap, this is a pervasive epidemic everywhere, right? And then on top of that, for you now, this has allowed you to get your story out there on TikTok and now on Instagram Live. Whereas if this happened, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, well, first of all, nobody would have cared. But second of all, you would not have had this ability. And I think this is what helps to educate people, keep the movement alive. What else do you want to add about where people can go? Because I know you want to talk about Safe Harbor.
Yes. Safe Harbor, I have that link to my bio on TikTok, and it is a group for like workplace bullying, because I experienced both the workplace bullying, which is the retaliation that really falls squarely in that category, but it can happen without it being retaliation after a covered event like sexual harassment, etc. It can just happen, and in this state, it's not illegal. So if you just bully, your employees out of their job, unless something like sexual harassment happened right before that, totally legal. True. But what I want to do with this, like what my goal, my end goal with all of this is, and I've been, hatching this plot for a while now, and again, totally inspired by you, is what I want to do, because changing laws it's important. That's a very big step, and it's very important. But as we both know, who listens to the laws? Like, what happened to both of us was illegal when it happened. It was illegal. It was against the law to do those things, but they did it anyway. what I feel like the missing piece to this, I mean, changing laws needs to happen, but then in addition to that, what I want to do is I would like for companies like Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, large corporations, small corporations, pretty much all corporations, to be more afraid of us than we are of them. I want to take what I've done here, and I would like to turn it into what in my old job was referred to as CBTs, computer-based training modules of, so when you get sexually harassed, this is what you do. Because if you Google it, you're going to get nonsense on go to HR. I mean, yes, you do need to have, you know, that kind of documentation. You have to show that you gave them every opportunity to make it right. And that's even with Charles Schwab's statement. I waited until they were in charge so they could make it right. So I wasn't painting all of these companies with the same brush. I gave them that shot. I stuck around for a lot longer than I should have for that opportunity for them, and they wasted it. I want to be able to teach as many women as possible to follow in these footsteps. So when something like this happens, the company is way more afraid of the damage that woman can do to their reputation than they are of, you know, of a lawsuit, or, you know, they have gigantic budgets to pay women off or to fight them legally in court for years until they just give up. This is not an easy road to go down.
I know. Imagine, Courtney, if they would spend, and this is what I'm doing at Lift Our Voices, my nonprofit that I started to really serve as the umbrella for all the advocacy work I'm doing, trying to change the laws, trying to change companies' behavior, et cetera. Imagine if they would put all of those millions into making workplaces safer to begin with, right? Yeah. But see, now the thing is, we've always had a voice, but now we really have a voice because, like you, we can go on social media and tell our story before they try to clamp down, right? Yeah. Before they try to get you with the arbitration clause, or before they try to get you with the NDA. And you are proof positive of why women, you're an inspiration why women should not sign the NDA.
Don't sign it.
Don't sign it. Because you're never going to own your own truth. And thankfully, with my NDA, I was given the opportunity to talk about this issue, and I've taken full advantage of that in trying to change culture, companies, and the law. And you, by doing your story in this way, are helping to inspire other women and men to know that they can come on any social media platform and speak out. And look, you're getting a comment from the bigwigs at Charles Schwab, who are writing to me saying that they take every allegation seriously and that this was a thing of the past. But let me tell you something. Companies can't hide about things in the past, because Fox News, my old employer, also says the same thing, that they've cleaned up shop and that they're, okay, let me tell you something, and I'll put this out to them again tonight. If you've cleaned up shop, then why don't you respond to my request to let me out of my NDA? Because so far you have not responded, as if you don't exist or I don't exist, and my letter requesting you to let me out of my NDA and other women there does not exist. So if you've cleaned up shop and everything is so great now, then why can't I talk?
That's a great question.
That is
an excellent question.
Right. So when they try to say that things are in the past, I'm not so quite sure about that.
No, it's not in the past. It's still happening. It's just they changed the way the game works. I think one of the biggest hurdles that, and it's the most difficult thing for me to talk about, is the gatekeepers and the barriers that come from other women. There are a lot of women out there who have this experience. When I started this on TikTok, I actually did not expect. I expected to be told I was lying or making too big of a deal. I got the exact opposite experience on TikTok. I'm pretty sure that I have listened to the stories that was going to make me cry. At least 2,000 women's stories. And Gretchen, so many of them signed NDAs. And the first thing they say is it's the biggest thing they ever regret. They're like, yeah, I got money, but I have a black hole in my life that I cannot speak about. It's like they're the ones who took the dignity from the woman in the first place by harassing her. And then they take that truth away. Like, they take so much, and and you don't think that it's taking that much. You think that I'm moving on and I'm getting peace, but you don't know that until you are way out of it. Like, I am still not at peace it's still ongoing, but I feel more at peace being able to talk about it and have people respond and be like, that's my story. I've had so many people say, your story is our story. And I know a lot of people there didn't actually realize that you had started this organization, and now that connects that. And I feel like the more of us out here doing this, it makes a network, and it makes a cushion that we never had before. And the women supporting women thing, like it seems cliche, but it's so important, and it has to be real, because there's a lot of that out there that is not real.
I know.
And you don't know who to trust and who not to trust. And I feel like the organization that you have started and you've been championing is so important. So important. And I'm so grateful that you did that. And I'm so grateful that you outsmarted everyone in your past. I know you can't talk about it, but I feel like I can, because I watched a movie. But the fact that you can't even talk about it, like, we can't have this discussion.
Well, I know, but I'm doing everything that I possibly can by just going right up to the line before I get in trouble. But let me also say, because we have a lot of men who are watching us right now too, and one of the biggest things that I've learned is that, yes, it's about women supporting women, but it's almost more about getting men on our team too. This is not male bashing, because the majority of men want to have safe working environments for women, but we need you on our team. We need you to help us, because let's face it, men still rule the world for the most part. They run most companies. They do all the hiring and the firing and the promotions. And we need them to understand this issue, to change the policies, to make workplaces safer for women, people of color, the LGBTQ community, any other disenfranchised group. And it starts with the top. So if you're a CEO of a company, or you're a manager at a company, go and tomorrow look at your contracts and decide that you are going to make your workplace safer for people. Because this is an epidemic, and we are pushing out the very people that companies actually want to retain, which are women and people of color, because we add to the bottom line. And if that's all you care about, then you should be wanting to get on board with us. And so we invite you to get on board with us.
So I'm not sure. I actually think I disagree that it starts at the top, because the top can sit up there and they don't see everything that happens below. They themselves can sit there and think, my company is doing great, and not know what's happening underneath. Because, like, you were at the top of your game. I was down here, at the bottom, and, like, it is like a pyramid. There's way more at the bottom than there are at the top. And actually get
what
into
I mean by
those
that,
levels,
though, is changing policies.
I
mean
is,
that, many times when I go to CEOs, they don't even understand how detrimental NDAs and forced arbitration clauses are. They don't even know that they have them. So that's what I mean about setting the tone at the top. I fully agree with you that a bunch of crap's going on at all different levels.
Mid-level managers, like this has been a very big pet peeve of mine, where I've heard from, after I started speaking out very loudly, and it was kind of direct, not direct. I've had tons of managers from my old company reach out to me anonymously through made up emails to, like, feed me information and tell me that, I'm right about this. I'm like, I know I'm right. Like, I know I am. Like, I watched all this and I documented it, but thank you for the encouragement. But there's a lot of them there that are like, I can't speak out because it hurts my career if I help you. Like, that is a very dangerous thing. And I've heard from a lot of women throughout my career where they'll say things like, I wish I could be more like you. And I'm like, I am a single mom. Right. And I am risking everything for all of us. And, like, your life is a lot easier than mine in a lot of those categories. Like, you just have to jump off a cliff. Like, and it's so scary, but you have to do it for all of us and for the future of women and even boys. I have 2 boys, and I don't want them having to live in an environment like this.
So important to get to our boys. I say that all the time. It's the second biggest lesson that I've learned, is that we really need to get to our boys so we can educate them to respect women, so when they get into the workplace, that they don't continue this pattern. Courtney, I got to wrap it up, but I've been so glad to be on Instagram Live with you for this lift up, and hearing your passion about this and your bravery. And if people want to learn more about your case, they can go to your TikTok, which is Omaha Oracle.
At the Omaha Oracle.
At the Omaha Oracle. And I hope that they will continue to follow your story and follow my work at liftourvoices.org, and all my social handles, which are just Gretchen Carlson. Thank you so much for being part of this lift up. Stay in touch with me, as I know you will.
I will.
Let me know if I can help you with legal help or anything else. And once again, I just want to mention that Charles Schwab did reach out to us and issued the statement that they take everything seriously, and that they've retained outside counsel to conduct an independent review of your allegations. Keep us posted. We'll probably need to have you back for another Instagram Live.
I would love to.
Courtney, all the best. Thank you for your bravery. You're inspiring thousands of others. Take care.
Thank you for being you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.